Um, Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of the Prudent Plastic Surgeon blog, where we welcome Dr. David Song as a special video guest. So thank you, Dr. Song, for taking some time out of your busy day to talk with us and share your wisdom.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Dr. Song, for those in the plastic surgery community, really needs no introduction, but for those who are not plastic surgeons or maybe not in the medicine field at all, Dr. Song is MedStar Health's Physician Executive Director for Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery and the Academic Chair for the Department of Plastic Surgery at Georgetown University Medical Center. He is internationally recognized as an expert in plastic surgery. He's lectured nationally and internationally, written in numerous papers and book chapters, and has really been a great advocate for the field. Before joining Georgetown, he was the chief of plastic surgery at University of Chicago and also got his MBA from there, as if he wasn't busy enough. So, I've admired Dr. Song from afar for a long time. We were just talking about it as a medical student and resident. I can remember sitting in his business of plastic surgery talks at various meetings and always being really interested. And now, after beginning my financial education, having a much greater appreciation for his advocacy for greater understanding of business in plastic surgery and in medicine. So thank you, Dr. Song, for everything you're doing, and again, for sharing your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah. So a lot of what I talk about on my blog is, as I discovered the importance of financial well-being and learning about finances and kind of taking control of them, I found that it influenced my personal well-being a lot, and also my well-being as a physician, my ability to care for patients, etc. So can you talk a little bit about how financial well-being has played a role in your life, both personally and as a plastic surgeon?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, I'll start with a story. My first day of practice, July 1, 2000, I believe, I was excited. I moved into my new office and, I opened the door 8 o'clock in the morning and I looked down on the ground, and it was an American College of Surgeons, guide to how to retire properly. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, they probably got the wrong person. No note attached, nothing. Yeah. And to this day, I remember that. And I remember, that's odd. I just started. But anyway, it was a whole issue on how to retire properly so that you're financially healthy and stable. And that leads to mental and emotional and personal stability. So I read it and I'm like, wow, this is brilliant. I think everyone starting their career should start this way, because I think if you do that, you can set yourself up for success, because I think personal, financial stability lends to, stability in every aspect of your life. I mean, as plastic surgeons, we're doing a lot of stuff that's unstable, right? Especially during these crazy times. And I think that adding that level and building a level of stability is really sort of the key to at least taking one variable out of the equation. So the real question is, how do you do that? I think there's simple things. We don't have the bandwidth to play the market or to, do kind of interesting investments that are high risk, potentially high reward, because we have a day job. And, a couple of my good friends from business school who, in fact, I'm very blessed to have friends that are Nobel laureates. How many people have friends that are Nobel laureates, right? Yeah. So two economists that I've gotten to know pretty well. And they're like, Dave, listen, because I asked them about their investment. Mm-hmm. He's like, they advise huge multi-billion-dollar funds, but for their own personal investment, they just put their money in pre-tax into the market and in an index fund. Mm-hmm. And over the course of 20, 30, hopefully 40 years for those watching this video vlog, that's going to lend to tremendous returns, and it's always going to beat the market, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would say that's probably the first thing that I would say. And, how do you do that? Well, most companies, and if you're in private practice, you can build out your own 503B or 401k and just maximize that out. Don't even see that money. And I think by doing that, you'll be surprised, of compounding interest, what that does to your retirement fund 10, 20, 30, 40 years later.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's such great advice, and hits on a lot of points that I've, talked about, especially with index fund investing. And especially, we're lucky as physicians and as plastic surgeons to be high income earners. And so we we're kind of buffered against needing to take that really increased risk that's especially present with like individual stock investing or angel investing or all of these kind of maybe more sexy kind of investing things to talk about. But just starting early, approximating the market with index funds, that's like really solid advice.
Absolutely. And it doesn't preclude you from having fun, right? So,
Right.
I've done some angel investing and I continue to do so, but that's just for fun. That's like, I don't know, going to Vegas, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you only hear about our colleagues who hit it big, right? Oh yeah, I did some angel investing in something called Amazon years ago, and now I'm not a plastic surgeon. You never hear about the failures, and I think that's important to make sure that you for every one. I mean, I think the statistics are for every angel investment that you make that's somewhat successful and that has an exit, you're losing out on 10. So if you're batting, 100, if your batting average is 100, that's the norm.
Right. Yeah. And you certainly, like you said, you have to have the right mindset going into things like that. And it's like you said, if you take aside a small part that you say, I'm willing to lose this all because I'm willing to take on that increased risk. And that's fun. And if it's something you believe in and it's a passion of yours, then that's something to do. But if you're someone going in with a mindset of this is how I'm going to retire, that's not a smart way to go about it.
Absolutely. And there's so many of us that because we're so busy, we are seen as easy prey.
Right.
And, traditionally surgeons and doctors, high income earners that don't have the bandwidth to do the due diligence and so forth, are seen that way. And that's just a cautionary tale that I've been told so many times that I would love to share with your audience is to make sure that that's the case.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about what got you kind of started and interested in the business of medicine? Because I know that's a lot about what you've talked about and, things that I've always found really intriguing.
Yeah. So this is a funny story. I mean, I am full of stories this morning. So I became a chief of plastic surgery at an early age. I think it was 3 years after my residency. And they did a big search. And long story short, I became the chief of plastic surgery at Chicago. Mm-hmm. First day, again, first day on the job, the admin comes in with a huge three-ring binder, puts it on my desk and says, "Hey, Dave, we need to make some decisions. Here's some revenue projection." I mean, just started talking this language that I've never heard of, and I was like, what are you talking about? So through that process, and I think it's, like all of us, I'm a bit of a type A. I like to have control. I don't, like to feel going into any room that I'm underprepared. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I, overcompensated by going to business school. But that was the motivation, is to understand the business of medicine. Because, as a resident, I had one of my mentors say, "Oh, don't talk to me about this business stuff. We're doctors." Yeah. Well, guess what? Healthcare is a huge business. It's not a bad word, and it shouldn't be pejorative. It should be tied to us as stewards of that great business that we are, doing some amazing things.
Yeah, no, again, I think those are such great points. And a lot of, that's exactly, you described me to a T in residency when people would talk, attending residents or just my friends outside of medicine about, investments or money or anything, I had no idea. And so in that sort of insecurity of realizing that I was, sort of failing at that aspect of my life, I would sort of try to convince myself, oh, well, I don't need to worry about that, or I didn't go into medicine for that. And it's true, we didn't. But that, again, as we need to be healthy financially in order to, feel kind of secure and have a foundation in our life. And that makes us better at what we do.
Absolutely.
And so can you talk a little bit about, I just started, my first attending job. And so obviously last year, was going through the process of interviewing and negotiating and things like that, and had a lot of great mentors to give me advice. And one of the things they constantly told me was, you have to know your value and know what you're bringing and use that in the negotiations. But then I always found it hard. How do I determine my value? And I ended up doing that just by asking, a lot of people some questions that initially I thought they'd be very uncomfortable answering, like, how are you compensated? How much are you making? That kind of thing. But how do you recommend, as there's kind of a new wave of, residents and graduating fellows that are interviewing for jobs now, how do you recommend that they know their value, or go about kind of negotiating that first contract?
Yeah, and there's an asymmetry of information purposefully, right? Because we in healthcare admin don't want to necessarily publicize what we start people at. Some are very transparent. We are very transparent. And to that end, our packages are very transparent. Our comp plan is very transparent at Georgetown MedStar. And so that makes things a lot easier for me and for our, recruits. I would say that we're sort of abnormal. Yeah. And most places have, sort of an obfuscated way of starting someone. To that end, I would say at most places, everything's negotiable. And so, a good young recruit that comes in and has a good understanding of her or his value because they've done the research, they've talked to friends, they've Google searched, they've, done a lot of stuff. I like that because I want to recruit someone that's a hot shot, right? I don't want someone that says, okay, well, thank you so much for this job. I'm grateful. This was the only choice I had. Yeah. I don't want that. Everyone wants the number one draft pick, right? So to that end, how do you do that? So you walk in there, as you said, Jordan, doing a lot of research. You can get a lot of information from 990 forms from different non-profit organizations that shows you, a range of salaries of the top 10 earners. You can extrapolate from that. You can talk to fellow residents, fellow attendings, and, even people like me. I advise a lot of people and that I've trained or friends of trainees, and, I share with them, this is, the 25th percentile, the 50th percentile, double AMC for this region and that region. Mm-hmm. And I think that background really adds to greater value. I have a sort of a different philosophy. I mean, everyone I recruit, I look at them as my replacement. And so in a few years, people get offended. Oh, I recruited Jordan. Jordan's getting recruited away. I'm like, no way. I want people that are wanted, right? So, it's in my personal feeling for this, it's a personal failure if I recruit someone and then after a few years they're not recruited because I want to retain them. Yeah. So it's like an MBA team, right? I mean, even the role players you're going to want them to be recruited because that means they've done a phenomenal job. And so, so that's what I would say is ask around, call your mentors, talk to people like me, and you'll be surprised. Plastic surgeons in academia, particularly in academics, are very open to, to sharing that information.
Yeah, oh, that's great. I think that's like a great, again, mindset to have is you want to surround yourself with talent, and eventually, they may move on, but only good things are going to happen when you surround yourself with good people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's great. And then, so shifting gears a little bit, you also obviously are involved hugely in resident education, being, chair of multiple programs and past president of the ASPS and the board of plastic surgery. How do you think financial education should be integrated? Well, do you think it should be integrated into resident education, and how do you think that should be done? That's something I really wish that I, had access to before.
Yeah, I mean, boy, you raise a conundrum for us as chairs and program directors, because we only have you for 6 years, right? And within that 6 years, we have to train you in the compendium of plastic surgery so that you can sit for the boards, sit for the orals, and pass. Mm-hmm. So 6 years seems like a lot of time, but you blink and you finished your fellowship at NYU. You know what I mean? It goes by quick. Yeah. So how do we squeeze that in? It's something that we struggle with because there's so many other competing things. There's now a huge curriculum that we're working on for, cultural sensitivity and biases. So then how do you weave in things like financial competency? That's a tough one. Yeah. So what we do is, we have seminars and we bring in experts. We have discussions that are very open. I go through how to read a income statement and understand a balance sheet, looking at cash flows. So I do that for our residents, mostly ad hoc. Yeah. But I mean, should we? Absolutely. How can we? I don't know. Only because we're so strapped and, constrained by the 6 years that we have you. Yeah. No, it's a very realistic answer. I think just like you said, just going through,
stuff like that, that's hugely helpful, just to learn, even to think about it, or just to begin to get the mindset of, okay, this is important. It's not a dirty thing. I'm not like all of a sudden becoming a bad, surgeon or doctor or whatever you are for caring about this.
Right.
So yeah, no, very interesting. So again, shifting gears more towards personal finances. One of the things, we sort of talked a little bit about before in terms of index fund investing and approximating the market. And, I try to emphasize the importance of creating a financial plan. Like I've published my actual financial plan that my wife and I wrote up for people who don't have one, to kind of use as a guide. How have the recent markets, because it's been crazy, it was like, obviously it was way down, then we were at all-time highs, and then last week there was all this hype about Apple and Tesla, and on the different forums, and people kind of sending me questions of like, well, what do you think about this? Should I buy Apple now, or when should I sell? And my answer is kind of always like, well, I don't think you should do any of that. Like, I think like literally throughout all of this, I've just sat and done nothing, and been happy with that. So what has your reaction been to that, and kind of what's your has it changed anything for you, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, much like you, I mean, that's why you're smart, and that's why 30, 40 years from now, after an illustrious career, you're going to have a great nest egg to retire on. I mean, you have to look at the long term, especially for those that are just starting practice, or a year or two, or even within 5 years. Compounding interest is a tremendous thing, and people just don't understand that. So if you just carve out, your pre-tax dollars, whether it's a Roth IRA or something through your company, or something you set up, or defined benefits program, and then just don't even think about it, and then have the extra money on the side. Yeah, if you want to buy some Apple stock and you think it's down, go for it. But that's not going to make or break your retirement. That's just, it's legal gambling, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I would see it, and I advise people when the market crashed, don't even look at your portfolio, because it's all artificial. Because it just gets you down. And so, and true to form, 2 months later, it's right back up to, it regained everything and then some. So, it just doesn't do you any good. You got to think the long-term, big career goals. And then this way, how do you maximize your pre-tax dollars? And I think that's the key. I think most people, you would do well with, if you don't want to hire someone, because there are agency costs to that, then you just go into an index fund, and then create your own TD Ameritrade or whatever Schwab account. I don't have any interest in any of those, but to play around with. But your bulk of your retirement nest egg should be in an index fund that you forget about, pre-tax dollars, and it keeps you level, it keeps you stable. And then if you want to have some fun, and invest a little bit here, a little bit there, knowing that you're not going to hit the batting average of the S&P index over the course of 30 years, then that's fun. It's fun money. That's sort of how I would put it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then also talking about investing, you've been obviously a lot of time in Chicago, and then now in DC, to kind of, high real estate price areas. Do you have any interest or experience or advice in terms of real estate investing? Fortunately, I mean, the old model of using your home as your nest egg, I think that's sort of changing, right? It's not completely gone, but asset classes are changing. So if you like real estate, there are REIT funds, real estate investment trusts, that you can get into. There's even some ETFs that you can sort of, if you like the whole real estate aspect of it. But look at what happened to commercial real estate right now. I mean, it is decimated, right? Yeah. And it's going to, who knows what the rebound's going to look like. 8 months ago, people were, hawking real estate investment trusts and commercial real estate, or get your piece of this apple or that apple, and people were buying. And it's a tough sell. And it's, I have some friends and acquaintances, excuse me, that were real estate commercial investors, and, one's bankrupt, and, it's horrible. So I think you have to have, like, I would say, with your play money, invest in something that resonates with you, whether it's biotech or real estate
or, commodities. That should be your play money. The rest of the bulk of what you do, again, I sound like a broken record, but I hope your audience really takes this to heart, because I did. And, you got 30, 40 years in practice, leverage that compounding interest pre-tax, and you'll never go wrong.
Yeah, no, great advice. I think that you're exactly right. And for a lot of people that kind of see real estate as this black bot, like doing the reinvesting or those real estate ETFs really are a great, option. There's also syndication. It's kind of on the spectrum. There's then syndications and funds that you really have to put a lot of due diligence in to make sure these people you're giving your money to, you trust them. And a lot of those have had a lot of hard times now, especially as the real estate market is
decimated.
Gone down.
That's the other thing I would say, Jordan, is, if you have the wherewithal and you have some context and you have a personal wealth advisor, make sure he or she is a fiduciary, and their transactional fees are standard, and they're not on some sort of commission for what they sell you, because you can see that is a conflict of interest.
Yeah, definitely. And that, like I said, I have no problem paying, a fair price for good advice, and I think everyone though has a responsibility to themselves to at least learn enough to sort of be able to tell if you're getting good advice. And especially if you think you're getting the advice for free, like you just alluded to, you're not. You're getting sold some probably not great products that they're getting a big commission on.
Exactly.
All right, and then to finish up, I wanted to ask you, like, what is your big why? It's something kind of I talk about, and you're obviously someone that's achieved so much and is continually improving and working to, I would say, like, constantly improve your overall well-being, and that includes financial well-being, your well-being as a physician, your personal well-being. So what is your why? Like, mine is, in doing all of this, I want to be able to practice kind of on my own terms, or be able to do it because I want to, not necessarily because I have to. And I love plastic surgery and plan to do it for a long time. And that sort of pulls me through the hard times, I guess. So how about you? What's your big why?
Yeah, I think it's very similar. I think for my why, I would say that giving and setting yourself up for financial stability allows your vanity projects in the future to become just that. It doesn't, you could marry your passion and vanity project with your real job, because you're not necessarily reliant upon that cash flow. So I would say if you can do that, that's one sort of metric for happiness, right? To be able to love what you do. At some point, many of us love this so much that, maybe you do it for free if they wanted you to, and it gives you the freedom to take a job wherever you want to go and not be tied to the cash flow. And so that would sort of be how you would set yourself up for stability, not just financial stability, but stability, period.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. I think, I'm sure the audience is going to take away a lot. I know I learned a ton, and really appreciate, again, you sharing all of your wisdom and advice.
Absolutely. And for those of your audience that's wondering why my screen shows shaky, I mean, we're on Zoom so often. I have this standing desk. So, trying to, marry some form of modicum of exercise while, we spend our times in front of screens when we're not in the operating. So that's another, aspect of combining resources, hopefully to lead to better health and wellness.
Yep. No, and that kind of thinking is why you've been able to be so successful and do all the things that you do. That's awesome.
Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah. Well, for everyone, remember to visit our site, prudentplasticsurgeon.com. You can join our Facebook page, which is the Prudent Plastic Surgeon, or email us at any time at prudentplasticsurgeon@gmail.com with any comments, questions, or if you're interested in our financial coaching services. And don't forget to join our mailing list on the website as well. All right. Thank you all.